The needle pierced Kira Johnson's arm for what felt like the 100th time that month. She winced as the nurse drew another vial of her blood, the dark red liquid flowing into the tube like liquid gold. Around her, the pristine white walls of the medical facility seemed to close in, and the constant beeping of machines filled the air with an ominous rhythm. "Please, I need to go," Kira whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of medical equipment. "My shift at the diner starts in an hour." Dr. Peterson, a stern-faced man in his 50s, barely looked up from his clipboard. "Miss Johnson, you signed the contract. You belong to Mr. Cross now. Your blood is the only thing keeping him alive." The words hit her like a physical blow. 6 months ago, she had been just another struggling college student, working double shifts to pay for her nursing degree. Then came the blood drive at her university, a simple donation that was supposed to help save lives. She never imagined it would destroy her own freedom. Her blood contained rare antibodies that could neutralize a deadly genetic condition affecting only a handful of people worldwide. Logan Cross, the 32-year-old billionaire CEO of Cross Industries, was dying from this condition. Without regular transfusions of her blood, he would be dead within weeks. "I never agreed to be a prisoner," Kira said, her dark eyes filling with tears. "You told me it would be temporary." Dr. Peterson finally looked at her, his expression cold and clinical. "Mr. Cross has invested millions in keeping you healthy and available. You have a legal obligation." The door to the medical room opened with a soft hiss and Logan Cross walked in. Even weakened by his condition, he commanded attention. His tall frame filled the doorway, his sharp blue eyes scanning the room before settling on Kira. His dark hair was perfectly styled despite his illness, and his expensive suit couldn't hide the slight tremor in his hands that betrayed his declining health. "Is the treatment ready?" he asked, his voice deep and authoritative. "Yes, sir. Miss Johnson's blood work shows optimal antibody levels today," Dr. Peterson replied quickly. Logan's eyes met Kira's for a brief moment. She saw something flicker there, perhaps guilt, but it was gone so quickly she might have imagined it. He took a seat in the chair next to her treatment bed, rolling up the sleeve of his white dress shirt. "Please," Kira said directly to him. "I have classes, I have a job. I can't keep living like this." Logan was quiet for a long moment as the nurse prepared the transfusion equipment. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer than before. "What's your major?" The question caught her off guard. "Nursing. I want to help people." A bitter laugh escaped his lips. "You are helping someone. You're keeping me alive." "This isn't helping," she said firmly. "This is imprisonment." He turned to look at her fully then, and she was struck by how tired he looked despite his commanding presence. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his skin had a pale quality that spoke of too many days spent in medical facilities. "You think I wanted this?" he asked quietly. "You think I enjoy having my life depend on someone else's blood?" The raw honesty in his voice surprised her. For the first time she saw past the powerful CEO facade to the vulnerable man underneath. "Then let me go," she whispered. "Let me have my life back." Logan was quiet as the nurses connected their 4 lines, his blood flowing out while hers flowed in. The process would take 2 hours, 2 hours where they were literally connected, sharing the essence of life itself. "I can't," he said finally. "Without you I die. It's that simple." Kira closed her eyes, feeling the familiar weakness that came with each donation. She had lost weight over the past months, her body struggling to keep up with the constant demand for her blood. Her grades had suffered, she had lost her job at the diner, and her small apartment was paid for by Cross Industries. She was completely dependent on the man who was killing her slowly to save himself. "What kind of life is this?" she asked, more to herself than to him. Logan was quiet for so long she thought he might have fallen asleep. Then, softly, he said, "It's the only one I have." As the hours passed, Kira found herself studying Logan's profile. Despite everything, she had to admit he was handsome. His strong jawline and aristocratic features spoke of good breeding, but there was something else there too. A loneliness that mirrored her own. "Tell me about your condition," she said suddenly. He opened his eyes and looked at her with surprise. "Why? If I'm going to be your personal blood bank, I should at least understand what's killing you." Logan was quiet for a moment, then began to speak. "It's called Henle syndrome. It's genetic, passed down through my family. It causes my immune system to attack my own organs. Most people with it die by age 25. I'm 32. How long have you known?" "Since I was 18. I've spent 14 years trying to find a cure, pouring millions into research. Then your blood showed up in a routine screening and suddenly I had hope again." Kira felt a strange pang in her chest. She had been so focused on her own suffering that she hadn't really considered his. How long do you need my blood? The doctors think if I can survive another year with regular transfusions, they might be able to develop a synthetic version of your antibodies. Then you'd be free. Another year. The words hung between them like a death sentence. Another year of being trapped, another year of watching her dreams slip away. What if I said no? She asked quietly. What if I just left? Logan's jaw tightened. Then I'd die. And my company would collapse. Thousands of people would lose their jobs. My mother would lose her only son. The guilt hit her like a wave. She closed her eyes and tried to push it away, but it lingered. How could she condemn a man to death, even if it meant saving her own life? When the treatment was finished and the nurses disconnected their IVs, Logan stood slowly. He looked stronger already, the color returning to his cheeks. Miss Johnson, he said formally. My driver will take you back to your apartment. As he walked toward the door, Kira called out, Mr. Cross. He turned back to her. What happens to me when this is over? When you don't need my blood anymore? Logan studied her face for a long moment. You'll be free to go. And you'll be compensated well enough that you'll never have to worry about money again. Money can't give me back the time I've lost. No, he said quietly. It can't. After he left, Kira sat alone in the medical room, feeling weaker than ever. The weight of her situation pressed down on her like a physical force. She was 23 years old, and her life belonged to someone else. Have you ever wondered what you would sacrifice to save a stranger's life? Would you give up your freedom, your dreams, your very future? What price would you put on another person's existence? If this story moves you, please subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support means everything to stories like these. As she slowly got dressed and prepared to return to her lonely apartment, Kira made a decision. She would survive this. She would find a way to reclaim her life, even if it meant fighting the most powerful man in the city. She had no choice but to be strong because the alternative was disappearing entirely. The driver was waiting outside just as Logan had promised. As the black sedan pulled away from the medical facility, Kira pressed her face to the window and watched the world go by. Somewhere out there was the life she was supposed to be living. And somehow she was going to find her way back to it. But first she had to survive Logan Cross. The mansion that Logan Cross called home was more like a fortress than a residence. As the sedan pulled through the iron gates, Kira pressed her face to the window, staring up at the imposing structure. 3 stories of stone and glass rose before her, surrounded by perfectly manicured gardens and a circular driveway that could have accommodated a small army of vehicles. This is where you'll be staying from now on, the driver, an older man named Frank, said as he pulled up to the front entrance. Mr. Cross thinks it's best if you're closer for the treatments. Kira's stomach dropped. I haven't agreed to move in here. Frank gave her a sympathetic look in the rearview mirror. I don't think Mr. Cross sees it as a request, miss. The front door opened before they even came to a complete stop. A woman in her 50s, dressed in a crisp black uniform, walked down the steps with purposeful strides. Her graying hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her sharp eyes assessed Kira with the efficiency of someone used to managing difficult situations. Miss Johnson, I'm Mrs. Patterson, the head housekeeper, she said as Kira stepped out of the car. Mr. Cross has instructed me to show you to your room and explain the house rules. House rules? Kira asked, following the woman up the marble steps. Mr. Cross values his privacy and routine. There are certain areas of the house that are off limits, certain times when you're expected to be available for treatments, and certain expectations about your behavior. The inside of the mansion was even more impressive than the exterior. The foyer featured a grand staircase that curved up to the second floor, with crystal chandeliers hanging from a ceiling that had to be at least 20 feet high. Original oil paintings lined the walls, and fresh flowers arranged in expensive vases filled the air with a subtle floral scent. Your room is on the second floor, Mrs. Patterson said, leading her up the staircase. Mr. Cross's suite is on the 3rd floor, which is strictly off limits unless you're specifically summoned. They walked down a long hallway lined with more artwork and elegant furniture. Mrs. Patterson stopped at a door halfway down the corridor and pushed it open. Kira gasped. The room was larger than her entire apartment had been. A king-sized bed dominated one wall, covered in silk bedding in soft cream colors. French doors led out to a balcony that overlooked the gardens, and a sitting area with 2 comfortable chairs was arranged near a fireplace. The bathroom is through that door, Mrs. Patterson said, pointing to the left. You'll find everything you need. Mr. Cross has had appropriate clothing delivered and placed in the closet. Kira walked to the closet and opened it, finding dozens of outfits in her exact size. Casual clothes, business attire, even evening wear. Everything looked expensive and perfectly coordinated. "How did he know my size?" she asked. "Mr. Cross is very thorough in his planning," Mrs. Patterson replied diplomatically. "Now about the rules. Breakfast is served at 7, lunch at noon, dinner at 7 in the evening. You're expected to eat regularly to maintain your health. Dr. Peterson will be conducting daily checkups at 9 each morning." "Daily?" Kira turned from the closet. "That seems excessive. Mr. Cross's life depends on your well-being, Miss Johnson. Nothing will be left to chance." The reality of her situation was sinking in deeper with each passing moment. She wasn't just giving blood anymore, she was becoming a full-time medical resource. "What if I want to leave the property?" Mrs. Patterson's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. "That would need to be approved by Mr. Cross. For security reasons." "Security or control? I'm sure I don't know what you mean, miss." After Mrs. Patterson left, Kira sat on the edge of the massive bed and tried to process her new reality. The room was beautiful, more luxurious than anywhere she had ever stayed, but it felt like the most elegant prison cell in the world. She walked to the French doors and stepped out onto the balcony. The gardens below were stunning, with perfectly trimmed hedges forming intricate patterns around a central fountain. In the distance, she could see the high wall that surrounded the property, topped with what looked like security cameras. "Beautiful view, isn't it?" Kira spun around to find Logan standing in the doorway to her room. He had changed from his suit into dark jeans and a gray sweater, looking more casual but no less commanding. "You can't just walk into my room," she said, crossing her arms over her chest. "It's my house," he replied, but there was no malice in his voice. "I wanted to make sure you were settling in." "Settling in?" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Is that what we're calling this?" Logan stepped onto the balcony, moving to stand beside her at the railing. Up close, she could see that he looked better than he had during the treatment earlier. His color was good, and the tremor in his hands had lessened. "I know this isn't ideal," he said quietly, "but it's temporary. Everything about this situation is temporary according to you. My freedom, your need for my blood, even your life if I don't cooperate." He was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the gardens. "What would you have me do, Kira? Let myself die to preserve your normal life?" It was the first time he had used her first name, and hearing it from his lips sent an unexpected shiver through her. "I would have you treat me like a human being instead of a medical commodity. Is that what you think you are to me?" She turned to look at him, studying his profile. "Aren't I?" Logan was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft. "At first, yes. You were just a solution to my problem. But what?" He turned to meet her eyes. "You ask questions. You challenge me. Most people either fear me or want something from me. You just want to be left alone. Is that so unusual?" "For me, yes." They stood in silence for a while, watching the sun set over the gardens. Despite her anger and resentment, Kira found herself curious about this man who held her life in his hands. "Tell me about your family," she said. "My parents died in a car accident when I was 25. I have a younger sister, but we're not close. The business consumed most of my relationships." "No wife? Girlfriend?" Logan's smile was bitter. "Hard to maintain a romantic relationship when you're slowly dying and completely focused on staying alive. So you're alone?" "Yes. Like me." He looked at her with surprise. "You don't have family?" "My parents died when I was 17. Car accident like yours. I've been on my own ever since." "I'm sorry." The simple words, spoken with genuine feeling, caught her off guard. It was a long time ago. Time doesn't make the loss easier. Just more manageable. They were interrupted by Mrs. Patterson's voice calling from inside the room. "Miss Johnson, dinner is ready." Logan straightened. "You should eat. Maintaining your strength is important." As they walked back through her room, Kira asked, "Will you be joining me?" "I usually eat alone in my study." "That sounds lonely." Logan paused at the door. "Would you prefer I join you?" The question surprised her. Despite everything, she found herself nodding. "Yes, I would." "Then I'll see you in the dining room." After he left, Kira changed into one of the outfits from the closet, a simple blue dress that fit her perfectly. As she made her way downstairs, she wondered what she was doing. Logan Cross was her captor, the man who had stolen her freedom. She shouldn't want his company. But as she entered the elegant dining room and saw him waiting at the long table, She realized that perhaps they were both prisoners in their own way. His prison was his failing body and the constant threat of death. Hers was the responsibility to keep him alive. "Thank you for joining me," he said as she took the seat across from him. "Thank you for asking." As Mrs. Patterson served dinner, Logan asked about her studies, her dreams of becoming a nurse, her life before their paths crossed. For the first time since this nightmare began, Kira felt like someone was seeing her as more than just a walking blood bank. "Why nursing?" Logan asked as they ate. "I want to help people heal," she said simply. "I want to make a difference." "You are making a difference. You're keeping me alive." "That's not the same thing. Isn't it?" Kira considered his words. "I suppose it is, in a way. But it's not my choice." "No," Logan said quietly. "It's not." After dinner, he walked her back to her room. At the door he paused. "Kira, I want you to know that I don't take lightly what I'm asking of you. Your sacrifice, it matters. Then help me find a way out of this that doesn't end with your death." Logan's eyes searched her face. "I'm trying. I promise you I'm trying." As he walked away, Kira watched until he disappeared around the corner. Then she went into her beautiful prison and locked the door, wondering how long it would be before she stopped seeing Logan Cross as her captor and started seeing him as something else entirely. 3 weeks into her stay at the mansion, Kira had developed a routine that made her captivity bearable. She woke at 6:30 each morning, had her daily medical check with Dr. Peterson at 9, spent afternoons reading in the library, and joined Logan for dinner each evening. Their conversations had become the highlight of her day, though she tried not to think too deeply about what that meant. This particular morning she found Logan in the kitchen at 6 a.m., standing at the stove making scrambled eggs. He was dressed casually in jeans and a white t-shirt, his hair slightly messy from sleep. The sight of the powerful CEO cooking breakfast was so unexpected that she stopped in the doorway. "You cook?" she asked. He looked up with a slight smile. "Surprised?" "Yes, actually. I assumed you had people for that." "I do. But I like cooking. It's relaxing." He gestured to the eggs. "Want some?" "I made extra." Kira found herself nodding and taking a seat at the kitchen island. The kitchen was massive, with professional-grade appliances and marble countertops, but there was something homey about watching Logan move around it with easy familiarity. "Coffee?" he asked, already reaching for a mug. "Please." As he plated the eggs and poured coffee, Kira studied his profile. The treatments were working well. His color was good and he moved with steady confidence. But there were still signs of his illness in the slight thinness of his frame and the careful way he managed his energy. "Why are you being so nice to me?" she asked as he set a plate in front of her. Logan paused, coffee pot still in his hand. "What do you mean?" "The comfortable room, the expensive clothes, cooking me breakfast. You could have just kept me in a medical facility and used me as needed. Why all this?" He finished pouring the coffee before answering. "Because you're not cattle, Kira. You're a person who's giving up her life to save mine. The least I can do is make you comfortable." "Guilty conscience?" "Maybe." He sat across from her and picked up his fork. "Does it matter?" She considered this as she tasted the eggs, which were surprisingly good. "I suppose not. But it makes this harder." "What do you mean?" "It makes it harder to hate you." Logan's fork paused halfway to his mouth. "Is that what you want to do? Hate me?" "It would be simpler." They ate in comfortable silence for a while. Then Logan said, "I have a proposition for you." Kira tensed. "What kind of proposition?" "I know you were studying to be a nurse. My company has a medical division. If you're interested, I could arrange for you to work there a few days a week. Get some practical experience." The offer caught her completely off guard. "You'd let me work?" "With restrictions. You'd need to be back for treatments on schedule, and security would need to know where you are at all times. But yes, you could work." Tears pricked at Kira's eyes. It wasn't freedom, but it was something. A chance to use her skills, to feel useful beyond being a living blood bank. "Why?" she whispered. Logan set down his fork and looked at her seriously. "Because I see what this is doing to you. The isolation, the feeling of uselessness. You're saving my life, but I don't want to destroy yours in the process." "Thank you," she said softly. "Yes, I'd like that very much." "Good. I'll make some calls today." 2 days later, Kira found herself walking through the corridors of Cross Medical Center, dressed in scrubs and carrying a tablet. She had been assigned to work with the pediatric nursing staff 3 days a week, gaining experience while being close enough to return to the mansion for treatments. "You must be Kira," said a warm voice behind her. She turned to see a woman about her own age with kind brown eyes and a bright smile. I'm Rebecca. I'll be showing you around today. As Rebecca led her through the children's ward, introducing her to patients and staff, Kira felt something she hadn't experienced in months: purpose. The children were drawn to her gentle manner, and she found herself genuinely enjoying the work. You're a natural, Rebecca said as they watched Kira help a 6-year-old girl with her lunch. Have you worked with children before? Not professionally, but I love kids. I always thought I'd like to specialize in pediatric nursing. Well, you've certainly found the right place for it. That afternoon, as Kira was helping organize medical supplies, she heard a familiar voice in the hallway. Logan was speaking with one of the doctors about expanding the pediatric wing. She listened as he discussed funding and staffing with the kind of detailed knowledge that spoke of genuine interest. He comes by at least once a week, Rebecca said, noticing Kira's attention. Most CEOs just look at numbers, but Mr. Cross actually cares about the patients. Does he? Oh yes. He started this medical center after his parents died. Said he wanted their memory to mean something positive. Kira filed this information away, adding another layer to her understanding of the complex man who controlled her life. Later that evening at dinner, Logan asked about her first day at the medical center. It was wonderful, she said, surprised by the enthusiasm in her own voice. The children are amazing. And the staff made me feel so welcome. I'm glad. Logan's smile seemed genuine. Rebecca mentioned you have a natural talent for pediatric care. You talked to Rebecca about me? I wanted to make sure you were settling in well. That you felt valued. The word hung between them, weighted with meaning. Valued. Not just useful, not just necessary, but valued. Logan, she said softly, then paused. It was the first time she had used his first name, and it felt strange on her lips. Yes. Thank you. For letting me work, for treating me like more than just what I am to you. Logan set down his wine glass and looked at her intently. What you are to me is more complicated than you think. What do you mean? But before he could answer, Mrs. Patterson appeared in the doorway. Mr. Cross, your sister is here to see you. Logan's expression immediately shifted, becoming guarded. Tell her I'll be right there. As Mrs. Patterson left, Logan stood. I'm sorry, I need to handle this. Of course. But as he reached the dining room door, he paused. Kira, maybe you should stay in your room for a while. My sister can be difficult. Before she could ask what he meant, he was gone, leaving her alone with her questions and a growing sense that there were parts of Logan's life she knew nothing about. From upstairs in her room later that evening, she could hear raised voices coming from Logan's study. A woman's voice, sharp and angry, cutting through Logan's calmer tones. Though she couldn't make out the words, the tension was unmistakable. The argument went on for over an hour before Kira heard a door slam and the sound of a car driving away. She waited another hour before venturing downstairs to get some water from the kitchen. She found Logan sitting at the kitchen island, a glass of whiskey in his hand and a weary expression on his face. Are you all right? She asked softly. He looked up, seeming almost surprised to see her. I thought you'd gone to bed. I was worried about you. Something flickered in his eyes. Worried about me? Is that so strange? Logan took a sip of his whiskey before answering. Yes, actually, it is. Kira moved closer, taking the seat beside him instead of across from him. What did your sister want? Money. She always wants money. His laugh was bitter. She also wanted to know about you. News travels fast in certain circles. What kind of news? That I have a woman living in my house. People are starting to talk. Kira felt heat rise in her cheeks. What are they saying? That you're my mistress. That I'm keeping you for my personal entertainment. That's ridiculous. Is it? Logan turned to look at her, his blue eyes intense. You're a beautiful woman living in my house, sharing my meals, working at my company. From the outside it would look exactly like that. The word, beautiful, sent an unexpected flutter through her chest. But they don't know the truth. No, they don't. And I intend to keep it that way. The fewer people who know about your condition and mine, the safer we both are. Safer from what? Logan finished his whiskey before answering. From people who would use that information against us. Business rivals, family members who want control of my company, anyone who sees vulnerability as opportunity. For the first time, Kira realized that Logan's world was more dangerous and complex than she had understood. He wasn't just fighting a medical condition. He was fighting to maintain control of an empire while keeping his weakness secret. Is that why you don't want your sister to know about me? Among other reasons. What are the other reasons? Logan was quiet for a long moment, staring into his empty glass. When he spoke, his voice was soft. Because she would see what I'm trying not to see. Which is. He looked at her then, his eyes holding hers. That this stopped being just about my medical needs weeks ago. The admission hung between them like a live wire. Kira felt her heart begin to race as the implications of his words sank in. Logan. I know, he said quietly. I know this complicates everything. I know you didn't ask for any of this. But I can't pretend anymore that you're just my cure. What happens when the line between necessity and desire becomes blurred? When a transaction becomes something deeper? The story is just beginning to unfold, and the most dramatic moments are yet to come. Don't miss what happens next. Subscribe now and let us know in the comments what you think Logan should do next. Before she could respond, he stood and walked toward the door. Good night, Kira. Thank you for worrying about me. As she watched him leave, Kira realized that everything had just changed between them. The careful balance they had maintained was crumbling, and she had no idea what would replace it. But for the first time since this ordeal began, she wasn't entirely sure she wanted to escape. The storm hit on a Thursday evening in late March, bringing with it winds that rattled the mansion's windows and rain that fell in sheets across the grounds. Kira had been living with Logan for 2 months, and their relationship had settled into something that felt almost normal. She worked at the medical center 3 days a week, had her treatments on schedule, and spent her evenings talking with Logan over dinner. But tonight felt different. The storm seemed to have awakened something restless in both of them. Kira found Logan in his study after dinner, standing at the large windows watching the lightning illuminate the sky. He was still wearing his work clothes from earlier, a navy suit with the tie loosened and the top button of his shirt undone. There was something magnetic about his silhouette against the storm-darkened glass. Quite a storm, she said, moving to stand beside him. I love storms, Logan said without taking his eyes off the lightning. All that power, completely beyond human control. It's humbling. Most powerful men I've heard of hate things they can't control. He turned to look at her with a slight smile. Who says I'm like most powerful men? Are you? What do you think? Kira studied his face in the intermittent lightning. I think you're more complicated than you want people to believe. And what makes you think that? The way you cook breakfast, the way you ask about the children at the medical center, the way you look when you think no one is watching. How do I look? Lonely. Logan was quiet for a long moment. Then he moved away from the window, walking to the leather sofa near the fireplace. Would you like some wine? I have a bottle of something special. Kira nodded and watched as he opened an expensive-looking bottle of red wine and poured 2 glasses. When he handed her one, their fingers brushed, and she felt that familiar electric jolt she'd been trying to ignore for weeks. To storms? Logan said, raising his glass. To surviving them, Kira replied. They sat on opposite ends of the sofa, the firelight casting dancing shadows across their faces. The wine was rich and smooth, warming her from the inside out. Can I ask you something? Kira said after a few minutes. Of course. Do you ever regret it? The way we met, the situation we're in? Logan considered the question seriously. I regret that you didn't have a choice. I regret that I've taken a year of your life. But do I regret knowing you? No. Even though it's complicated? Especially because it's complicated. Logan set down his wine glass and turned to face her fully. Kira, I need to tell you something. The serious tone in his voice made her heart skip. What? Dr. Peterson ran some additional tests last week. The treatments are working better than expected. My condition has stabilized significantly. That's wonderful news. Isn't it? Yes and no. Logan ran a hand through his hair. The good news is that we might not need the full year of treatments. The bad news is... What? The bad news is that means our arrangement will end sooner than planned. And I'm not sure I'm ready for that. Kira felt something twist in her chest. What are you saying? I'm saying that somewhere along the way this stopped being just about my medical needs. You've become important to me. The admission hung between them like a confession. Kira felt her pulse quicken as she processed his words. Logan. I know this is complicated. I know the power dynamic between us makes everything questionable. But I can't pretend anymore that what I feel for you is just gratitude. A particularly loud crack of thunder made them both jump, and suddenly the lights went out, plunging the study into darkness except for the flickering firelight. Generator should kick in any moment, Logan said, but his voice sounded closer than before. In the darkness, Kira could hear Logan moving, and then she felt the sofa dip as he sat closer to her. Much closer. Kira, he said softly, and she could feel his breath against her cheek. Tell me to stop. Stop what? She whispered. This. His hand found her face in the darkness, his thumb tracing along her cheekbone. Tell me this is just the situation, just proximity and circumstance. But she couldn't say it because it would be a lie. Somewhere between the shared dinners and morning conversations, between watching him care for sick children and seeing him vulnerable in the quiet moments, her feelings had shifted too. I can't, she admitted. Can't what? Can't tell you to stop. Can't pretend this is just circumstance. The generator kicked in then, bathing the study in soft light, but neither of them moved apart. Logan's hand was still on her face, and she could see the conflict in his blue eyes. This changes everything, he said. I know. If we cross this line, there's no going back. I know that too. Logan leaned closer, his forehead almost touching hers. Are you sure? Instead of answering with words, Kira closed the distance between them, pressing her lips to his. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, but when Logan responded by pulling her closer, it deepened into something that spoke of weeks of suppressed longing. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Kira, Logan said, his voice rough with emotion. I need you to know this isn't about gratitude or obligation. This is about you. The woman who challenges me, who makes me laugh, who worries about children she barely knows. And I need you to know this isn't about Stockholm Syndrome or dependence. This is about the man who cooks me breakfast and asks about my dreams and looks at me like I'm more than just the thing keeping him alive. Logan's smile was soft and genuine. So what do we do now? I don't know, she admitted. But I know I don't want to go back to pretending there's nothing between us. He stood and extended his hand to her. Then don't. Kira took his hand and let him pull her to her feet. The air between them was charged with possibility and desire, but also with the weight of their complicated situation. Logan, I need you to promise me something, she said as they stood close together. Anything. Promise me that when this is over, when you don't need my blood anymore, you'll still want me. Not as your cure, not as your obligation, but as me. Logan cupped her face in both hands, his eyes intense and sincere. Kira Johnson, I promise you that what I feel for you has nothing to do with your blood and everything to do with your heart. The kiss that followed was different from the first. It was a promise, a commitment, a crossing of the line they had been dancing around for weeks. When Logan lifted her in his arms and carried her toward the door, Kira knew that everything about their relationship was about to change. Are you sure? He asked one more time as they reached the doorway. I'm sure, she said, and she was. Whatever came next, whatever complications this would bring, she was tired of fighting what she felt. As Logan carried her up the stairs to his suite, the storm continued to rage outside, but inside the mansion, something beautiful was beginning. The morning after the storm brought brilliant sunshine streaming through Logan's bedroom windows. Kira woke slowly, aware of unfamiliar surroundings and the weight of a strong arm around her waist. The events of the previous night came flooding back, along with a mixture of contentment and uncertainty. Logan was still asleep beside her, his face relaxed in a way she had never seen before. Without the tension that usually marked his features, he looked younger, more peaceful. She studied the strong line of his jaw, the way his dark hair fell across his forehead, and felt her heart do something complicated in her chest. What had they done? As if sensing her scrutiny, Logan's eyes opened, immediately focusing on her face. A slow smile spread across his lips. Good morning, he said, his voice rough with sleep. Good morning. She felt suddenly shy, aware of her bare shoulders above the sheet. Logan's hand found her face, his thumb tracing her cheek. Any regrets? Kira considered the question honestly. No. You. Never. He leaned in to kiss her softly. How are you feeling? Different, she admitted. Everything feels different. Different how? Before she could answer, there was a sharp knock on the bedroom door. Mr. Cross. Mrs. Patterson's voice came through the wood. Dr. Peterson is here for Miss Johnson's examination. Reality crashed back over them like cold water. Kira sat up quickly, clutching the sheet to her chest. Tell him I'll be down in 20 minutes, Logan called back. Very good, sir. As Mrs. Patterson's footsteps receded, Logan and Kira looked at each other with the sudden realization of how complicated their situation had become. I should go, Kira said, moving to get out of bed. Logan caught her hand. Kira, wait. What? This doesn't have to change anything with the medical side of things. Dr. Peterson doesn't need to know about us. She nodded, understanding the need for discretion, but something about keeping their relationship secret felt wrong. Still, she knew he was right. The fewer people who knew, the less complicated things would be. 20 minutes later, Kira sat in the medical room while Dr. Peterson conducted his usual examination. She tried to act normal, but she felt different and she wondered if it showed. "Your vitals look good," Dr. Peterson said, making notes on his tablet. "Blood pressure is slightly elevated, but that's not unusual. Any symptoms I should know about? Fatigue, dizziness, nausea?" The word nausea made her stomach do a little flip. She had been feeling slightly queasy for the past few days, but she had attributed it to stress. "No, nothing significant," she said. "Good. I'd like to run some additional blood work today. Mr. Cross's condition is responding so well to the treatments that we want to make sure we're optimizing everything." As Dr. Peterson drew her blood, Kira found herself thinking about the previous night. She and Logan had crossed a line that changed everything, but where did they go from here? What did a relationship look like when one person literally needed the other to survive? Later that morning, she went to work at the medical center, throwing herself into caring for the children to distract from her racing thoughts. But even surrounded by her small patients, her mind kept drifting back to Logan. "You seem distracted today," Rebecca observed as they prepared medications. "Just tired," Kira said. "The storm kept me awake." "That was quite a storm. Lost power at my place for 3 hours." Rebecca studied her friend's face. "Are you sure you're feeling all right? You look a little pale." "I'm fine." But as the days passed, Kira began to feel anything but fine. The nausea that had started as occasional queasiness became a daily occurrence, usually hitting her first thing in the morning. She was more tired than usual, and her emotions seemed to be all over the place. She tried to hide these symptoms from Logan, not wanting to worry him when his own health was finally improving. Their relationship had settled into something beautiful and strange. They spent their evenings together, talking and laughing like any couple, but there was always the underlying reality of their medical arrangement. "You're quiet tonight," Logan observed one evening as they sat in his study after dinner. "Just thinking." "About what?" Kira hesitated. There were so many things she was thinking about. The growing feelings between them, the uncertainty of their future, and increasingly, the strange symptoms she had been experiencing. "About what happens next," she said finally. "When you don't need my blood anymore." Logan set down his wine glass and moved closer to her on the sofa. "What do you want to happen?" "I want to believe this is real. That what we have isn't just because of our circumstances. It is real, Kira. What I feel for you." He took her hand. "It has nothing to do with your blood. But how can we be sure? How can either of us know what's real when our entire relationship is built on this medical necessity?" "Because of this," Logan said, leaning in to kiss her. "Because of the way you make me laugh. Because of how you care about everyone around you. Because you see me as more than just my illness or my money." Kira wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at her. Their relationship existed in this strange bubble, separated from the real world. What would happen when that bubble burst? The next morning, the nausea was worse than ever. Kira barely made it to the bathroom before she was sick, retching until her stomach was empty. As she sat on the cool tile floor trying to catch her breath, a terrifying thought occurred to her. No, it couldn't be. But even as she tried to dismiss the possibility, she was doing calculations in her head. When was her last period? With all the stress and medical treatments, her cycle had been irregular, but now that she thought about it, she needed to know for sure. That afternoon, during her break at the medical center, Kira slipped down to the laboratory. She knew one of the technicians, a friendly woman named Carol who had always been kind to her. "Carol," she said casually, "could you run a quick test for me? Nothing major, just want to check something." "Of course, honey. What kind of test?" Kira took a deep breath. "A pregnancy test." Carol's eyebrows rose slightly, but she didn't ask questions. "No problem. Can you give me a sample?" 30 minutes later, Kira sat in a supply closet, staring at the test results Carol had discreetly handed her. "Positive." The words seemed to blur before her eyes as the implications crashed over her. She was pregnant. With Logan's baby. The man whose blood she shared, whose life she was keeping stable, whose future was so uncertain. How could she bring a child into this complicated situation? More importantly, how could she tell Logan? Their relationship was already fraught with questions about what was real and what was circumstance. A pregnancy would complicate everything exponentially. That evening at dinner, Logan immediately noticed her distraction. "You're not eating," he observed. "Not very hungry. Are you feeling all right? You seem tired lately." Kira looked up at him, this man she was falling in love with, this man whose child she was carrying, and felt overwhelmed by the weight of her secret. "I'm fine," she lied. "Just a lot on my mind." Logan reached across the table to take her hand. "You know you can talk to me about anything, right?" The irony of his words was almost painful. Here he was, offering to listen, and she was keeping the biggest secret of all. "I know," she said softly. But as she looked into his concerned blue eyes, she wondered how long she could keep this secret. And more importantly, what would happen when the truth finally came out. Later that night, as Logan slept peacefully beside her, Kira lay awake with her hand on her still flat stomach. Baby. Their baby. In the midst of all the medical complications and uncertain futures, life had found a way to make things even more complex. She closed her eyes and tried to imagine telling Logan, tried to picture his reaction. Would he be happy? Terrified? Would he think she had done it on purpose to complicate their arrangement? One thing she knew for certain: everything was about to change. Again. For 2 weeks, Kira managed to hide her pregnancy from Logan. She became an expert at timing her morning sickness to occur when he was in meetings, at masking her fatigue with extra coffee, and at deflecting his concerned questions with reassuring smiles. But keeping such a monumental secret from someone she shared meals with, worked near, and slept beside every night was becoming increasingly difficult. The truth came out on a Tuesday morning during what should have been a routine medical examination. "Miss Johnson, I need to discuss something with you," Dr. Peterson said as he reviewed her latest blood work results. Logan was present for this appointment, as he often was when discussing her medical status. He sat in the chair beside her examination bed, looking relaxed and healthier than she had seen him in months. "Is something wrong?" Logan asked, immediately alert. Dr. Peterson looked between them with a puzzled expression. "Not wrong exactly, but there are some significant changes in Miss Johnson's hormone levels that we need to address." Kira's heart began to race. She had hoped the pregnancy wouldn't show up in her regular blood work for a few more weeks. "What kind of changes?" Logan asked. "Elevated HCG levels, along with other indicators that suggest." Dr. Peterson paused, looking at Kira carefully. "Miss Johnson, when was your last menstrual period?" The direct question hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Kira felt Logan's eyes on her, felt the weight of the secret she could no longer keep. She began, then stopped. "Miss Johnson," Dr. Peterson said gently, "are you pregnant?" The silence that followed was deafening. Kira could hear her own heartbeat, could feel Logan's shock radiating from where he sat beside her. "Yes," she whispered finally. Logan stood up so quickly his chair scraped against the floor. "What?" Dr. Peterson looked between them with growing understanding. "I see. Mr. Cross, perhaps we should discuss the implications of this development." Implications. Logan's voice was tight with an emotion Kira couldn't identify. "What implications?" "Well, pregnancy will affect Miss Johnson's ability to continue with the blood treatments. We'll need to adjust dosages, monitor both her health and the baby's, consider the risks." "Risks?" Kira found her voice. "What risks?" "The treatments we've been giving you, while generally safe, haven't been tested on pregnant women. We'll need to consult with specialists, run additional tests." Logan was pacing now, his hands running through his hair in agitation. "How long have you known?" he asked Kira. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. He stopped pacing and turned to stare at her. "You've known for 2 weeks and didn't tell me?" "I was trying to figure out how." "How what?" "How to tell me that my cure is pregnant. That the one thing keeping me alive might not be able to continue." The words hit Kira like physical blows. "Is that all you're thinking about? Your cure? What else should I be thinking about?" Logan's voice was rising. "My life depends on your blood, Kira. If you can't continue the treatments, then what? You'll get rid of the baby? Find another solution." "I didn't say that. You didn't have to." Dr. Peterson cleared his throat. "Perhaps I should give you both some time to process this news." "No," Logan said sharply. "I need to know the medical facts. Can she continue the treatments safely?" "I'll need to consult with specialists, but preliminary research suggests that we can continue with modifications. However, we'll need to monitor both patients closely." "Both patients?" Kira asked. "You and the baby," Dr. Peterson clarified. "This pregnancy will require careful management given your unique medical situation." After Dr. Peterson left, Logan and Kira sat in silence in the medical room. The beeping of machines filled the space between them. "Are you happy about this?" Logan asked finally, his voice quieter now. Kira considered the question. "I don't know. Scared, confused, overwhelmed, but not unhappy. Whose is it? The question was so unexpected that Kira stared at him in shock. Whose? Logan, what are you asking? Are you certain it's mine? The implication behind his words was like a knife to her chest. Are you seriously asking me if I've been with someone else? When? Where? I'm with you or at the medical center or in this house every moment of every day. Logan had the grace to look ashamed. I'm sorry. This changes everything. Yes, it does. But not in the way you think. What do you mean? Kira slid off the examination table and faced him directly. You're thinking about this as a complication to your medical treatment. I'm thinking about this as our child. Our child? Logan repeated the words as if testing how they sounded. Kira, I don't know how to be a father. I don't know how to be in a real relationship. Everything about my life has been about surviving, about staying alive long enough to find a cure. And now I'm going to live. The treatments are working, my condition is stabilizing, and I'm going to live. But I don't know how to do anything except survive. The raw honesty in his voice broke through her anger. She could see the fear in his eyes, the uncertainty of a man who had spent years focused on death suddenly facing the prospect of life. So we learn together, she said softly. What if I'm terrible at it? What if I can't give you what you need, what the baby needs? Kira moved closer to him, placing her hands on his chest. What if you're amazing at it? What if this is exactly what we both need? Logan's hands covered hers. I'm scared, Kira. For the first time in years, I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of living. Because living means you might lose something. Because living means I have something to lose. You, the baby, this future we might have. Then we protect it, Kira said firmly. We figure out how to make this work. Logan pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. I'm sorry for my reaction. I'm sorry for making you feel like you were just my cure. You're so much more than that. I know you're scared. I'm scared too. But Logan, this baby, it's a part of both of us. It's proof that we're more than just a medical arrangement. A baby, Logan said wonderingly, as if the reality was just sinking in. We're having a baby. Yes, we are. Logan pulled back to look at her face. Are you sure about this? About us, about raising a child together? I'm sure that I love you. I'm sure that you're not just my captor anymore, and I'm not just your cure. Whatever this baby means for our future, we'll face it together. I love you too, Logan said, and the words seemed to surprise him as much as they did her. I've never said that to anyone before. Never? Never. I didn't think I was capable of it. And now? Logan's hand moved to rest on her still flat stomach. Now I think I'm capable of more than I ever imagined. As they stood together in the sterile medical room, surrounded by the equipment that had brought them together, Kira felt something shift in their relationship. The pregnancy had forced them to confront the reality of their feelings, to move beyond the careful boundaries they had maintained. They were going to be parents. Together. And somehow that made everything else seem possible. The news of Kira's pregnancy spread through Logan's inner circle like wildfire, and the reactions were not what either of them had hoped for. 3 days after Dr. Peterson's revelation, Logan's sister Vanessa arrived at the mansion unannounced, her designer heels clicking angrily across the marble foyer. You cannot be serious, Vanessa said without preamble as she stormed into Logan's study where he and Kira were reviewing baby books. Tell me you haven't gotten your blood bank pregnant. Logan stood slowly, his jaw tight with controlled anger. Vanessa, meet Kira Johnson, the woman I'm in love with. Kira, this is my sister Vanessa, who apparently has no concept of basic courtesy. Vanessa Crosshampton was everything Kira had expected from Logan's description. Perfectly coiffed blonde hair, expensive clothes, and an air of entitlement that radiated from her like perfume. Her cold green eyes assessed Kira with open disdain. Love? Vanessa laughed bitterly. Logan, you don't know what love is. You know gratitude, dependence, and apparently lust, but not love. That's enough, Logan warned. Is it? Do you have any idea what this looks like to the board, to our investors, to the press? The CEO of Cross Industries, dependent on blood transfusions from a woman half his age, who is now conveniently pregnant with his child. Kira felt heat rise in her cheeks. There's nothing convenient about this pregnancy. Oh, I'm sure there isn't, Vanessa said sarcastically. Just a happy accident that ensures your financial security for the next 18 years. Vanessa. Logan's voice cracked like a whip. Apologize. Now. I will not apologize for stating facts. This woman has been living in your house for months, completely dependent on you for everything. Now she's pregnant and you're talking about love? It's textbook Stockholm Syndrome on both sides. Get out, Logan said quietly, but his voice carried a dangerous edge. Logan, be reasonable. The board is already questioning your fitness to lead the company. Your mystery illness, your erratic behavior over the past few months, and now this. They're talking about calling for a vote of no confidence. Kira felt her stomach drop. What does that mean? It means they want to remove Logan as CEO, Vanessa explained with obvious satisfaction. And honestly, given his recent judgment, maybe they should. That's never going to happen, Logan said firmly. I own 51% of the company. For now. But if they can prove you're mentally incompetent, if they can show that your medical condition has affected your decision-making abilities, they can't prove that because it's not true, isn't it? You've made a medical dependency into a romantic relationship. You've compromised the very treatment keeping you alive by getting involved with your donor. That doesn't exactly scream sound judgment. Kira stood up, her hands instinctively moving to protect her still small belly. I think I should leave you two to discuss this privately. No, Logan said firmly, taking her hand. Whatever concerns my future concerns ours. You're not going anywhere. Vanessa's eyes narrowed as she watched the interaction. Ours? Logan, you've known this woman for 4 months. You've been dependent on her blood for 3 of those months. Whatever you think you feel. What I feel, Logan interrupted, is love. Real, honest, complicated love. Something you've never understood. Love doesn't pay for medical treatments, Logan. Love doesn't run a company or protect a legacy our parents built. And money doesn't keep you warm at night or make you want to be a better person. Vanessa threw up her hands in frustration. Fine. Be romantic. Be impulsive. But don't drag the family business down with your midlife crisis. This isn't a midlife crisis. This is my life. My choice. Your choice affects thousands of employees, Logan. It affects shareholders, investors, business partners. You have responsibilities beyond your personal happiness. The argument continued for another hour, with Vanessa becoming increasingly vicious in her attacks on Kira's character and Logan becoming more defensive. Finally, Vanessa left with threats about board meetings and legal challenges. I'm sorry, Logan said as soon as his sister was gone. She's always been difficult, but that was inexcusable. Kira sank into a chair, feeling emotionally drained. Is what she said true? About the board wanting to remove you? They've raised concerns, yes. But legally they can't remove me without cause. What if they find cause? Logan was quiet for a long moment. Then we'll deal with it. Logan, maybe she's right. Maybe I have compromised your treatment. Maybe this pregnancy is going to make everything more complicated. Hey. Logan knelt beside her chair and took her hands. Don't let her get in your head. What we have is real. This baby is real. Everything else is just politics. Politics that could destroy your company. The company will survive. The question is, will we? Over the next few days, it became clear that Vanessa's visit had been just the beginning. Logan's phone rang constantly with calls from board members, investors, and business partners. There were whispered conversations that stopped when Kira entered the room, and Logan spent hours in his study dealing with what he described as damage control. Dr. Peterson arrived with specialists to discuss the pregnancy and how it would affect the treatments. The consensus was that they could continue with modifications, but the stress of the corporate drama was clearly affecting both Logan and Kira. My blood pressure is elevated, Kira reported to Logan after her appointment. Dr. Peterson says I need to reduce stress. Then that's what we'll do, Logan said immediately. I'll handle the business issues. You focus on staying healthy. Logan, I can't just ignore what's happening. If they remove you as CEO, they won't. But if they do? Logan was quiet for a long moment. Then we'll figure out a new plan. I have enough money to keep us comfortable for several lifetimes. The company isn't everything. Isn't it? You've spent your entire adult life building it. I've spent my entire adult life trying to stay alive. The company was just something to do while I waited to die. Now I have reasons to live. Despite his reassuring words, Kira could see the stress affecting Logan. He was sleeping poorly, his appetite had decreased, and there was a tension in his shoulders that hadn't been there before. The crisis came to a head on a Friday morning when Logan's assistant called an emergency meeting. The board of directors had voted to schedule a formal review of Logan's fitness to serve as CEO, citing erratic behavior and compromised judgment due to medical issues. When is the review? Kira asked as Logan hung up the phone. Next week. What do you need to prove? That I'm mentally competent and that my medical condition doesn't affect my ability to run the company. And how do we do that? Logan looked at her with surprise. We? Yes, we. This affects our future, our baby's future. What do we need to do? Logan's smile was the first genuine one she had seen from him all week. We need to show them that I'm stronger now than I've been in years. That my personal life has made me more focused, not less. Then let's do that. Kira, this could get ugly. They're going to attack our relationship, question your motives, try to make you look like a gold digger or worse. Let them try, she said firmly. I know who I am and I know what we have. Do you? Yes, Logan said without hesitation. I know exactly what we have, and I'm not letting anyone take it away from us. As they spent the weekend preparing for the board review, Kira realized that this was their first real test as a couple. Not the medical complications or the pregnancy, but the outside world trying to tear apart what they had built. She was ready to fight for it. The question was whether their love would be strong enough to survive the battle ahead. The boardroom at Cross Industries was filled with tension thick enough to cut with a knife. 12 board members sat around the polished mahogany table, their faces ranging from concerned to openly hostile. Logan sat at the head of the table in his usual spot, looking calm and professional despite the circumstances. Kira sat in the gallery area, her hands folded over her small but growing belly, offering what support she could through her presence. This review has been called due to concerns about Mr. Cross's fitness to serve as CEO, announced Richard Sterling, the board's senior member and Logan's longtime adversary. Recent behavior suggests that his medical condition may be affecting his judgment. Logan's lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Webb, spoke first. My client's medical records show significant improvement over the past several months. His condition has stabilized, and he is more capable of fulfilling his duties now than he has been in years. That may be true, Sterling replied, but his personal decisions raise serious questions about his judgment. Entering into a romantic relationship with his medical donor creates conflicts of interest and potential liability issues for the company. My personal relationships are not subject to board approval, Logan said calmly. They are when they affect the company's reputation and expose us to legal risk, Sterling shot back. What happens when this relationship ends badly? What happens if Miss Johnson decides to use her unique position to extort money or favorable treatment? That would never happen, Logan said firmly. How can you be certain? You've known this woman for 4 months and she's been completely dependent on you for financial support during that entire time. Now she's pregnant with your child, ensuring continued financial obligation. The optics alone are damaging to the company. Patricia Webb stood up. Mr. Sterling, are you suggesting that Mr. Cross should be removed as CEO because he fell in love? I'm suggesting he should be removed because his judgment has been compromised by an unhealthy attachment to someone who holds his life in her hands. Kira felt anger flare in her chest. She had promised Logan she would remain quiet during the proceedings, but listening to herself being described as a manipulative opportunist was becoming unbearable. Another board member, Margaret Chin, spoke up. Mr. Cross, can you explain your decision-making process regarding this relationship? How do you separate your medical needs from your romantic feelings? Logan stood, his posture straight and confident. Dr. Chin, let me be very clear about something. My relationship with Kira Johnson began as a medical necessity. But what developed between us has nothing to do with that necessity and everything to do with the fact that she is an extraordinary woman who has brought meaning to my life beyond mere survival. But surely you can see how this appears to outside observers, Sterling pressed. A billionaire CEO in a relationship with a woman completely dependent on him financially. Actually, Logan said, his voice taking on a steely edge, I'd like to address that concern directly. He pressed a button on the conference table, and his assistant entered the room carrying a large folder. What you'll find in these documents is evidence of every financial transaction between myself and Miss Johnson over the past 4 months. You'll see that she has been paid fairly for her medical contributions, but beyond that she has accepted nothing. No gifts, no additional payments, no access to my personal accounts. In fact, she has repeatedly refused offers of financial assistance. Patricia Webb distributed copies of the documents to each board member. You'll also find character references from the staff at Cross Medical Center, where Miss Johnson has been volunteering her time working with pediatric patients. These references speak to her dedication, professionalism and genuine care for others. Sterling flipped through the documents with obvious frustration. This doesn't change the fundamental problem. Mr. Cross's life depends on this woman's continued cooperation. That creates an inherent power imbalance that affects his judgment. Actually, Logan said with a slight smile, it doesn't. What do you mean? I mean that as of last week, my medical condition has stabilized to the point where I no longer require regular blood transfusions. Dr. Peterson has confirmed that I can now go indefinitely without Kira's blood while maintaining my current health status. The room fell silent. Several board members looked genuinely shocked. That's wonderful news, Dr. Chin said carefully. But it doesn't change the question of your judgment over the past several months. Actually, it does, Logan said. Because it proves that my feelings for Kira have nothing to do with my medical dependency. I no longer need her blood to survive, but I still want her in my life. In fact, I want her in my life permanently. Logan turned to look at Kira, his eyes warm and determined. Then, to her complete shock, he walked over to where she was sitting and dropped to one knee. Kira Johnson, he said, his voice carrying clearly through the silent boardroom, you saved my life in more ways than one. You gave me your blood when I needed it to survive, but more importantly, you gave me your heart when I needed it to live. Will you marry me? The diamond ring he pulled from his pocket caught the light from the conference room windows, but Kira barely noticed it. She was staring into Logan's eyes, seeing love and certainty and a future she had barely dared to imagine. Yes, she whispered, then louder, yes, of course I'll marry you. The boardroom erupted in surprised murmurs as Logan slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her gently. Well, Sterling said dryly, that was unexpected. Logan stood and helped Kira to her feet, keeping her hand in his as they faced the board together. I called this meeting to address concerns about my fitness to lead this company, Logan said. I believe I've demonstrated that my personal relationships, far from compromising my judgment, have actually strengthened my resolve and clarified my priorities. I am more focused, more motivated, and more capable of leading Cross Industries into the future than I have ever been. Dr. Chin raised her hand. Mr. Cross, while we're all happy about your engagement, this doesn't fully address the concerns that have been raised. How do we know that your medical improvement will continue? What contingency plans are in place if your condition deteriorates? Patricia Webb opened another folder. Dr. Peterson has provided detailed medical projections showing that Mr. Cross's condition is not expected to deteriorate. In fact, the treatment protocol has been so successful that they are considering publishing the results in medical journals. Furthermore, Logan added, I've prepared a comprehensive succession plan that addresses any potential future medical issues. The company will be protected regardless of my personal health status. Sterling leaned back in his chair, clearly running out of objections. And what about the potential for scandal? The press will have a field day with this story. Let them, Logan said firmly. I've spent years hiding my medical condition, hiding my personal life, trying to present a perfect corporate image. I'm done with that. The truth is that I'm a man who was dying and found someone who not only saved my life but made it worth living. If that's scandalous, then so be it. Margaret Chin smiled slightly. Mr. Cross, I have to admit that your transparency is refreshing. But the board still needs assurance that this relationship won't interfere with your corporate responsibilities. Dr. Chin, I give you my word that my personal life will enhance, not detract from, my professional performance. Kira has already proven herself to be an asset to the company through her work at our medical center. She understands the importance of what we do here. Sterling made one last attempt. What about when the baby comes? Will you be taking extended leave? How will you balance new parenthood with running a billion-dollar corporation? Logan looked at Kira, and she saw something pass between them, an understanding that went beyond words. Mr. Sterling, Logan said, my father built this company while raising 2 children. My mother was an equal partner in every decision he made. I intend to follow their example. Kira will not be a distraction from my work, she'll be an integral part of it. Patricia Webb stood up. I think we've addressed all the concerns raised by this review. Mr. Cross has demonstrated his fitness to continue as CEO, both medically and personally. I move that this review be concluded with no action taken. Seconded, Dr. Chin said immediately. Sterling looked around the room and saw that he had lost. Very well. All in favor of concluding this review with no action. 10 hands raised. Only Sterling and 1 other board member abstained. Motion carried, Sterling said reluctantly. This review is concluded. As the board members filed out of the room, several stopped to congratulate Logan and Kira on their engagement. Dr. Chin lingered behind. Logan, I owe you an apology, she said. I was genuinely concerned about your health and judgment, but seeing you today, you're stronger than you've been in years. Whatever Kira has brought to your life, it's been good for you. Thank you, Margaret. That means a lot coming from you. After everyone had left, Logan and Kira stood alone in the boardroom where their future had just been secured. That was quite a proposal, Kira said, looking down at the stunning ring on her finger. Too public? I know it wasn't very romantic, but I wanted everyone to know that this isn't about obligation or dependency. This is about choice. It was perfect, she said, reaching up to touch his face. But Logan, are you sure? We're talking about marriage, a baby, a complete life change. 6 months ago you were focused on just surviving. 6 months ago I didn't have anything to live for beyond tomorrow. Now I have you and our baby, and a future I never thought I'd see. Kira, I've never been more sure of anything in my life. What about your sister? She's not going to be happy about this. Logan's expression hardened slightly. Vanessa will have to learn to accept it. You and our child are my priority now, not her approval. And the company? Really, Logan, can you balance everything? With you beside me? I can do anything. They walked out of Cross Industries hand in hand, past curious employees and into the bright afternoon sunlight. As they got into Logan's car, Kira realized that their relationship had just passed its biggest test. So when do you want to get married? Logan asked as they drove home. Soon, Kira said without hesitation. I don't want to wait. I don't want to give anyone time to try to talk us out of it or create more complications. How soon is soon? Next month? Logan looked at her with surprise. Next month? That's fast. Is it too fast? No, he said, his smile widening. It's perfect. Let's do it. Sometimes love requires fighting for it, standing up to those who doubt it, and proving that it's real despite the circumstances that brought two people together. What do you think makes a love story truly believable? Share your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe for the next chapter of Logan and Kira's journey. As they pulled up to the mansion, Kira felt a sense of completion she had never experienced before. The man beside her was no longer her captor or her patient. He was her fiancé, the father of her child, and the person she wanted to build a life with. They had fought for their relationship and won. Now it was time to plan their future together. Mrs. Cross, Logan said as they walked up the front steps. I like the sound of that. So do I, Kira replied, and she meant it with every fiber of her being. The wedding took place on a perfect Saturday morning in late spring at Logan's family estate, a sprawling property an hour outside the city that had been in the Cross family for 3 generations. Kira had wanted something simple and intimate, but Logan insisted that their wedding should be a celebration worthy of the love they had found. You only get married once, he had said when she protested the elaborate plans. I want everyone to know how much you mean to me. Now, as Kira stood in the bridal suite of the estate's main house, looking at herself in the full-length mirror, she could hardly believe this was her life. The wedding dress was a masterpiece of silk and lace that Logan had commissioned from a designer in Paris. It fit her perfectly, accommodating her growing belly while still making her feel like a princess. You look absolutely radiant, said Rebecca, her friend from the medical center who was serving as her maid of honor. It had been an easy choice. In the absence of family, Rebecca had become like a sister to her. I can't believe this is really happening, Kira said, smoothing her hands over the dress. Believe it? You're about to marry the man you love, you're having his baby, and you're both healthy and happy. It's like a fairy tale. Through the window, Kira could see the ceremony site. White chairs were arranged in neat rows facing an archway covered in white roses and greenery. The guest list was small but meaningful. Key employees from Cross Industries, Logan's closest business associates, staff from the medical center, and a few of Logan's friends who had stood by him through his illness. Notably absent was Vanessa, who had declined to attend despite Logan's invitation. Her absence stung, but Kira was determined not to let family drama overshadow their special day. It's time, Rebecca said, adjusting Kira's veil one last time. Dr. Peterson appeared in the doorway, looking handsome in his formal suit. Miss Johnson, or should I say soon to be Mrs. Cross, are you ready? When Kira's parents had died, Dr. Peterson had been the one constant professional figure in her life during the medical arrangement. When she had asked him to walk her down the aisle, he had been honored to accept. I'm ready, she said, taking his offered arm. The walk down the aisle seemed both endless and over in an instant. She was aware of the guests turning to watch her, of the photographer capturing every moment, of the string quartet playing softly. But her focus was entirely on Logan, who stood at the altar in a perfectly tailored black tuxedo, his eyes fixed on her with an expression of pure love and wonder. He looked healthy, strong, and more handsome than she had ever seen him. The man who had been dying when they met was now radiant with life and happiness. When Dr. Peterson placed her hand in Logan's, she felt the familiar electric connection that had always existed between them, stronger now than ever. "You're beautiful," Logan whispered as they faced each other. "So are you," she whispered back. The ceremony was traditional but personal. They had written their own vows, and when it came time to speak them, Logan's voice was clear and strong. "Kira, when I met you, I was a man focused only on surviving. You taught me the difference between existing and living. You saved my life with your blood, but you saved my soul with your love. I promise to spend the rest of our lives showing you how grateful I am for both gifts." Kira's voice trembled slightly as she spoke her vows. "Logan, you think I saved you, but the truth is you saved me too. You showed me that I was stronger than I knew, braver than I believed, and worthy of a love I had never imagined. I promise to love you, to support you, and to build a beautiful life with you and our children." When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Logan's kiss was tender and full of promise. The small crowd erupted in applause as they walked back down the aisle together, officially Mr. and Mrs. Cross. The reception was held in the estate's grand ballroom, decorated with thousands of white flowers and soft lighting that made everything look magical. Kira had worried that the formal setting would feel stuffy, but the atmosphere was warm and joyful. During dinner, Logan stood to make a toast. "6 months ago, I was a man with no future," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the room. "Today, I'm a man with everything to live for. Kira, you didn't just give me your blood, you gave me your heart, your strength, and your faith in tomorrow. To my wife, the mother of my children, and the love of my life." "To Mr. and Mrs. Cross," the guests replied, raising their glasses. As the evening progressed, Kira found herself swept up in the joy of the celebration. She danced with Logan to their wedding song, "At Last" by Etta James, feeling like the luckiest woman in the world as he held her close and whispered sweet words in her ear. "How are you feeling?" he asked as they swayed together. "Perfect. This is perfect." "No regrets about marrying your former captor?" he teased gently. "No regrets about marrying the man I love," she corrected. "Though I reserve the right to hold your medical dependency over you in future arguments." Logan laughed, the sound rich and happy. "Deal. And I reserve the right to remind you that you said yes when I proposed in a boardroom full of corporate executives. That was pretty romantic, actually." "Really? Really? You chose me over everything else that mattered to you. You made our relationship public when you could have kept it quiet. You fought for us. I'd fight for us every day if I had to." Later in the evening, as they were cutting the cake, Patricia Webb approached them. "Congratulations," she said warmly. "I have to say, Logan, marriage suits you. I've never seen you look so happy." "I've never been so happy," Logan replied, his arm around Kira's waist. "Actually, I have some news that might make you even happier," Patricia continued. "Richard Sterling announced his resignation from the board yesterday. Apparently, he's decided to focus on his other business interests." Logan raised an eyebrow. "Interesting timing. I thought you'd appreciate that. The board is fully behind you now. No more challenges to your leadership." "That's wonderful news," Kira said. "Though honestly, after today, I feel like we could handle anything." As the evening wound down, Logan and Kira said goodbye to their guests and prepared to leave for their honeymoon. They were spending a week in Hawaii, somewhere Logan had never been despite his wealth and travel opportunities. "Ready to start our new life, Mrs. Cross?" Logan asked as they got into the car that would take them to the airport. "More than ready, Mr. Cross." As they drove away from the estate, Kira reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. 6 months ago, she had been a struggling nursing student whose biggest concern was paying her tuition. Now she was married to one of the most successful men in the country, expecting his child, and looking forward to a future filled with possibilities she had never dared to imagine. "What are you thinking about?" Logan asked, noticing her quiet contemplation. "Just everything. How different our lives are now compared to when we met. Do you miss any of it? Your old life, your independence, the simplicity?" Kira considered the question seriously. "I miss some things. I miss the innocence of not knowing how complicated love could be. But I wouldn't trade what we have for anything. Even though it started with you being forced to save my life? Especially because it started that way. It means we know we can survive anything together." Logan brought her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "Here's to surviving everything together and thriving while we do it." "Here's to our new beginning," Kira agreed. As their plane lifted off into the night sky, carrying them toward their honeymoon and the start of their married life, both Logan and Kira felt a sense of completion and anticipation. They had fought for their love, proved it was real, and now they were free to enjoy the life they had built together. The future stretched ahead of them, full of promise and possibility. 1 year later, Kira Cross stood in the nursery of their new home, a beautiful colonial-style house on 10 acres outside the city, gently rocking their 3-month-old daughter Emma to sleep. The baby had Logan's dark hair and Kira's warm brown eyes, and she was the most beautiful thing either of them had ever seen. "How's our little princess?" Logan asked softly from the doorway, having just returned from a day at the office. "Perfect as always," Kira whispered back, carefully placing Emma in her crib. "She slept most of the afternoon, which means she'll probably be up half the night." "Then we'll be up half the night together," Logan said, wrapping his arms around his wife from behind. "How was your day?" Kira leaned back against his chest, enjoying the familiar comfort of his embrace. "Wonderful." The contractors finished the final touches on the medical center's new pediatric wing. It's going to be amazing when it opens next month. The Cross Children's Medical Center had been Logan's wedding gift to Kira, a state-of-the-art facility dedicated to providing free medical care to underprivileged children. Kira was serving as the director of nursing, finally able to use her degree and pursue her dream of helping children heal. "And how are you feeling?" "Really?" Logan asked, his hands resting gently on her waist. "Tired, happy, overwhelmed in the best possible way," she said honestly. "Some days I can't believe this is our life." "Believe it," Logan said, pressing a kiss to her neck. "This is exactly what we both deserve." They moved quietly out of the nursery and downstairs to the kitchen, where Mrs. Patterson had left dinner warming in the oven. She had followed them from the mansion to their new home, claiming she was too old to train new employers. "How was the board meeting today?" Kira asked as they sat down to eat. "Productive. Quarterly profits are up 18%, the medical division is exceeding all projections, and the expansion into pediatric research is moving ahead of schedule." "And your health?" Logan smiled at the question she asked every day, even though it had been over a year since his last treatment. "Perfect. Dr. Peterson says my blood work is better than it's been in decades. Whatever your blood did to my system, it seems to have permanently corrected the genetic defect." "So you really don't need me anymore," Kira teased, echoing the fear she had voiced so many times in the early days of their relationship. "Actually, I need you more than ever," Logan said seriously. "Just for entirely different reasons now." After dinner, they took their usual walk around their property. Logan had insisted on buying land where Emma could grow up with space to run and play, where they could have the family life he had never experienced as a child. "I got a call from Vanessa today," Logan said as they walked hand in hand down the tree-lined path. "Really? What did she want?" "To apologize. And to ask if she could meet Emma." Kira was quiet for a moment. Logan's relationship with his sister had been strained since their wedding, with only occasional brief phone calls and no visits. "What do you want to do?" she asked. "I want Emma to know her aunt, even if her aunt can be difficult. Family is important. Then we'll arrange a visit. But Logan, if she's anything less than respectful." "She'll be respectful," Logan said firmly. "I made that very clear to her." They paused at the top of a small hill that overlooked their house and the lights of the city beyond. In the distance, they could see the Cross Industries building, its logo illuminated against the night sky. "Do you ever regret it?" Kira asked. "Giving up the bachelor CEO lifestyle for diaper duty and family dinners?" Logan turned to face her, his hands framing her face in the moonlight. "Kira Cross, marrying you and starting this family was the best decision I've ever made. Every single day with you is better than anything I had before. Even the sleepless nights and baby spit up on your expensive suits? Especially the sleepless nights and baby spit up on my expensive suits." As they walked back toward the house, Kira reflected on how much their lives had changed. Logan was still the CEO of Cross Industries, but he was also a devoted husband and father who never missed bedtime stories or family dinners. She was still the woman whose blood had saved his life, but she was also a successful professional, a loving wife, and a mother who felt blessed beyond measure. "Logan," she said as they reached their front porch, "do you think we would have found each other if it hadn't been for your illness? If we had met under normal circumstances?" Logan considered the question seriously. "I don't know. Maybe not. I was pretty closed off before I met you, focused only on work and survival. You might not have been able to break through my walls. And I might have been intimidated by the powerful billionaire CEO. But we did find each other," Logan said, pulling her close. "However it happened, whatever brought us together, we found each other and we made it work. Despite everything. Because of everything. The medical dependency, the corporate drama, the family opposition. All of it just proved that what we have is real. Inside the house, they checked on Emma one more time before heading to their bedroom. As Kira got ready for bed, she caught sight of herself in the mirror and marveled at the changes in her appearance over the past year. She looked healthier, happier, more confident than she ever had before. "What are you thinking about?" Logan asked, coming up behind her. "Just how different I look. How different I feel. You look like a woman who is loved and knows it." "Is that what I look like?" "That's exactly what you look like." As they settled into bed together, Emma's soft cries came through the baby monitor. "My turn," Logan said, getting up before Kira could move. She listened as he padded down the hall to the nursery, heard his gentle voice talking to their daughter, and smiled at how naturally fatherhood had come to him. When he returned 20 minutes later, Emma was quiet again. "She just wanted to be held," he said, sliding back into bed. "She has good taste. I know the feeling." Logan gathered Kira into his arms, and she settled against his chest with a contented sigh. "Logan? I love our life. I love our life too. And I love you. I love you more than I ever thought possible." As they drifted off to sleep, surrounded by the quiet sounds of their peaceful home and their sleeping baby, both Logan and Kira felt the deep satisfaction of a life well lived and a love well fought for. Their story had begun with desperation and medical necessity, but it had become something beautiful, lasting, and real. They had proven that love could grow in the most unlikely circumstances, survive the most difficult challenges, and create something better than either of them had ever dreamed possible. In the morning they would wake up to another day of their extraordinary ordinary life. Breakfast together, Logan leaving for the office, Kira working at the medical center, family dinner, bedtime stories, and the simple joy of being together. It was everything they had never known they wanted, and everything they would ever need.